You're listening to the Bulldog Hour, getting you inside the Wilson football program with weekly game previews, recaps, highlights, and interviews. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Good Saturday night, everyone, and welcome back to the Bulldog Hour. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mays, and sitting here with me, like always, is my co-host, Justin Raffoff.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm not going to lie, for a split second when you were like, good Saturday evening, I'm like, wait, what?
Wait, where are we? What year is it?
So, yeah, I mean, it won't honestly change the logistics of the show all that much, but it did throw me off hearing you say it. I hadn't prepared myself for that, I guess. But
I think the biggest change is going to be our live viewership is not going to be what we've been accustomed to so far this season. It's definitely been our most fruitful season to date of people watching live. We have multiple dozens, which doesn't sound like a lot for a little show that we've done. When we get into the, 30, 40, 50 people watching just live. That's awesome. We love that. And that's why I hate moving the schedule. I don't like doing that. Sometimes it has to happen. And this is just one of those weekends where it's going to occur. We'll be back on Sundays from here on out. There is a bye week coming up at the beginning of November where the team doesn't have a game, so we won't have a game. That revolves around the playoffs. That's a District 3 problem. You can take it up with them. But I also will be in Pittsburgh for a wedding, so we're not even going to be in the same area to do the show. But we will have a show next Sunday, which is going to be a good one because I know it's happening at our normal day and normal time because the NLCS, which the Phillies are a part of, is not occurring next Sunday night. There is no game that day. Hopefully there isn't even a game necessary.
I was going to say, hopefully, man, maybe they'll have it wrapped up by then. That would be incredible.
That would be fantastic. But we will be back next Sunday, which is October 22nd, 8:30. And we'll be joined by a few guests.
Yeah, some of which will also be very pleased with if that is the case. On the other hand, one probably does not want us to bring up baseball at all. So.
Yeah, I think he's moved on.
Yeah.
He's fully focused back on football season now that his beloved Orioles have bowed out, unfortunately, swept 3-0. But we are being joined by Jeff Reinhardt from LancasterOnline.com, Lancaster Sports, and Mike Drago from MikeDragoSports.com, and one of our sponsors here at the Bulldog Hour. They joined us last year during that weird first weekend in November bye week that District 3 6A instituted before the playoffs to line things up better with the state playoffs. But we had them on the show to recap the regular season and preview the upcoming playoffs, which was a lot of fun. It was great to have them both here.
Yeah.
Mike had been on previously, but to have Jeff here with him, it was a fantastic show. And we're going to have them back. It's at a little bit different time of the year, so we are going to recap most of the regular season, but focus on previewing Week 10, which, in case you haven't heard, that will be Wilson Manheim Township for the Section 1 title, most likely, as long as neither Wilson nor Manheim Township gets tripped up in Week 9. And there's a couple of other great Week 10 games on the slate in almost every section throughout the Lancaster-Lebanon League.
Yeah, there's some big ones.
So that will be next Sunday night. We'll be joined by Mike and Jeff to talk about the season to date and get ready for the second season, but mostly those big important games happening in Week 10 across the entire LL League. Kudos to the schedule makers. It definitely worked out the last 2 years. You have Exeter, Manheim Central in Section 2. You have, is it Schuylkill Valley, Lancaster Catholic, I think, for Section 5.
Yeah.
Does Wyomissing play LS that week?
I believe they do.
So a lot of stuff happening. I know that may not be for this section championship since Wyomissing lost to Calico last week,
plays.
But I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I know Cedar Crest plays Lebanon. That's the other one I know off the top of my head.
I wonder
but Garden Spot is that their game with? That might be their game with.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I think it's at least 3 of the 5 sections have a de facto section championship game in Week 10. That's the way it's playing out.
That's
to
pretty
date.
awesome.
So, yeah, it's pretty cool. All right, before we recap Wilson's win against Penn Manor, Comets came to Gursky for a Week 8 throwdown, and Wilson came out on top. 24-6 was the final. We do want to thank our Season 9 sponsors, Bill Mays and Mays Sandwich Shop, as well as White Star Tours. Thank you for being presenting sponsors of the Bulldog Hour here for Season 9. And in addition to those two local businesses, we also have the aforementioned Mike Drago at MikeDragoSports.com, the Hop family, Andy Herr, and our 5 anonymous donors. Thank you very much. We appreciate the support in so many different ways. And sponsorships, advertising, and donations are always welcome and accepted. We do hope you visit BulldogHour.com and continue to subscribe to the show on a variety of podcast platforms and video platforms, including YouTube. That would be great. You can find the Wilson Bulldogs football account on there, or check us out at the Joe Mays and J-Raff show as well for our other sports content. But then elsewhere around social media, we're everywhere: Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and you can take care of Justin's favorite thing at those sites.
Yeah, like and share. Spread the news. Let us know what you like, and that helps us kind of keep content coming for the show.
All right, I'll throw it up there one more time, but we mentioned it a lot already. Next Sunday, October 22nd, 8:30 is our next live show. We will recap the game against McCaskey, preview the game against Manheim Township with Jeff Reinert and Mike Drago, and talk about just how lucky we are to have a great slate of Week 10 games across the Lancaster-Lebanon League. All right, schedule up on the screen now, and we're on deck. We're on deck for the final week.
It's crazy.
Going down to Lancaster to take on McCaskey this week, Friday, October 20th, against the Red Tornado. A lot of big things coming up for the Wilson football program, which we'll talk about here in a little bit.
Yeah, definitely some big things on the horizon. So hopefully, they can handle their business. We'll talk about that later in the show.
So it was a big night last night at Gursky, because not only was the Bulldogs football team looking for their sixth win on the season, and continue to stay undefeated in the league with the chance to win the league title. All that happened, but it was also homecoming.
Yeah.
It was the annual Pink Out game, and we saw a new set of former student athletes inducted into the Athletic Hall of Fame.
Yep.
All great things. I have pictures of...
those, and I already mentioned to you, that made me feel old. Having a number of them were actually, maybe all of them were actually in school when
you were
working in the district.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was, for football perspective, it was Rodney Hill, who is a current strength performance coach with the University of Arkansas. He was actually there for the official induction pregame, but then had to hop on a plane to go fulfill his duties as a coach for a Power 5 football program.
Who hung in there.
Hung in with Alabama, yes. The University of Arkansas fell to Alabama, but Rodney Hill was in West Lawn last night before heading out to take care of his responsibilities there. Patrick Zerby, a current assistant coach for the football team, also inducted. And then there were 3 other people, Justin, at the top of my head, it was Adam Bainbridge, Caitlin Carr, and Sarah Deck. Yep. So those are your 5, all of which have graduated from the class of 2009 between, was it class of 2012? Like it was like with that 3 or 4 year.
That would be about right, because I think you have to be out 10 years, right?
Okay.
So that would be about right.
So yeah, so class of from the fall of 2008 through graduation of the class of 2013. That's where I think all 5 fell in that area. Yeah. So great class inducted, and Rodney Hill's family was there on the field at halftime of the game to be there with the other inductees to get honored at halftime. So that was a lot of fun. I have pictures up from all those events, the inductees for the Hall of Fame, the homecoming at halftime, and also the band did their performance, the show, which was fantastic.
Yeah,
it
was really good.
I talked to the dad of one of the members today, and I told him how much I enjoyed the show. I thought it was very well done. The new uniforms that they've debuted this year look fantastic. And if you didn't get to watch it live, you can check it out at the end of the game stream. I believe Wilson Media Productions was still there from
And
the
also
booth.
to give them a shout out, I believe you could stick around and watch it at the end of Band Panorama this coming Saturday.
Sound Panorama, yes, this is coming Saturday.
Sound Panorama. Yeah.
Yep, Sound Panorama is coming up this coming weekend at Gursky.
Yeah.
So you can check out the Wilson Marching Band, Wilson Marching Unit, as well as their guests there for their annual Sound Panorama coming up. So there's a bunch of pictures from all those events, pregame, halftime, and postgame with the band that's on the photo album that I just posted. So one other thing happening, and this is much more personal, but I wanted to spotlight it because it was awesome, was during the most recent Wilson Education Foundation silent auction fundraiser that happened, I bid and won for my oldest daughter, Natalie, to be an athletic trainer for a day. And I talked to Kiernan about it, and she was invited to join the crew on the sideline last night. And she was there from 4:30 till 10:30. It was a long day for her, but it was a great one. She had a blast.
That's awesome.
It's something that she's at least tangentially interested in some manner, some facet. She's become very much enamored with sports. And she loves science and medicine. So I was like, this is something you should probably check out. It doesn't mean you have to do it.
Right.
You don't even have to do it when you're a student. That would be cool, but you don't have to. But at least get exposed to different things and stuff that's out there. And she had a blast. So thank you very much to Kiernan, Kyle, and crew, especially Cammie. Natalie hung out with Cammie when Kyle and Kiernan were dealing with, what they have to deal with on Friday nights.
Yeah.
And Chase was great. So, yeah, the crew was excellent from Wilson Sports Medicine. So I appreciate them taking the time, showing her the ropes and welcoming her in. And she had a blast. So really do appreciate the foundation and Kiernan for coming up with that. And I'm glad I got to win it. I'm glad she got to partake. It was a lot
That's
of fun.
awesome. That was a great one. I remember last week, because the game ran so late, we actually found out whether or not we won the auctions before we got home.
That's right, I did.
But like so many cool things to bid on through the Ed Foundation silent auction. So that's awesome, and it's all for a great cause because the money goes back to supporting the kids throughout the district. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. It was fantastic. I won a few things at one of the previous auctions. No like events like that, just other things. But this was very cool, and if it happens again, I'm sure I will be checking it out. So appreciate everyone at the Education Foundation and Wilson Sports Medicine for doing that for my daughter. All right, so back to the game at hand. Justin, I wish we could come on here and say that this was Wilson's best game of the year because we've been waiting now 8 weeks to say that, but I don't think we can check that box yet. It was another rough start, a little slow and plodding. It's tough to be too upset when you only give up 6 points and it's near the end of the game.
Right,
but
and they did. It did end like by the end. You could say like, yeah, they kind of. It was a dominating performance in a way, but like not in the way that I would have maybe thought it was going to be. Well, to be honest, we had this conversation a lot and maybe kind of like off the air, but like that, the Penn Manor Hempfield score from 2 weeks ago really caught our attention. Like, it caught everyone's attention. We're not unique in that thing. But then like after watching last week at Hempfield, I'm like, I still was like, how'd that happen? But then honestly, through the first part of our game, I'm like, okay, like if they're able to establish that run game and, they make some plays on defense, I can see how they could cause problems for teams. So I could see where that maybe came from, even though maybe in the big picture, if you look at their record and things like that for Penn Manor, it might not show tons of success. They had 3 wins in a row coming in. I can see how like, okay, yeah, it could get to a point where it's a little hairy for some teams and like Hempfield, maybe you get bit by it. But Wilson had some opportunities to maybe exert some more control on it, but they were able to make it like do enough, that it wasn't in doubt, but
I feel like
would have liked to see a more crisp performance all around.
I feel like doing enough is how these 6 wins have gone. Like, Wilson's been able to do enough to win the game, will not lose the game, come away with the victory, which is all that really matters. But
absolutely.
For, just to feel good about it, I know they don't, because I'm there post game in the huddle with the coaches and the players, and hearing the Coach Dom's talk, and then the senior players get together and talk. And I guess the good thing is they're not satisfied. They're not saying, well, that's the best we can do.
Absolutely.
Which is the best takeaway, because you don't ever want a team that thinks they're good enough. You don't. Good enough is never good enough.
Right. Like, what conversation would we be having if, like, we were leaving that game and thought that was the best that we had to offer?
Right.
But like everyone around knows, like, where the bar is, where the standard is. And while we've been working to get there, I don't think there's anyone that would argue we're there yet. And now the good thing is we've gotten, what is it, 6 in a row now?
6 wins in a row.
We've gotten 6 in a row, and we still haven't met that peak.
Right.
But we're also getting to that time where
the witching hour,
we're going to need to peak, right? Like, you don't want to get to a point where you're wondering what could have been.
Right.
You want to get to the point where, look, we got to the point, we maximized what we had to give, and that we got as far as we could get. Like, whatever that means, whether that's league title, whether that's district titles, whether that's a state run, like whatever that is. Every year, every team wants to peak at the right time and make that run to see where do we really stand. And we talk about, there's teams who don't ever get there, and there's teams who got there in September and then things kind of spiraled after that. Like, so, I think that is a real bright spot for this team yet, is that, man, because it's so close. Like, and I honestly, looking at the Penn Manor game, I think it was really close to being more what I thought it was going to be. There were a couple really close plays or this or that, and if they can get that to click, man, it'll be real interesting to see how things go if they can get it to be where I think and believe this team can get.
Right.
And the good news is, like, I don't know. I still feel like I don't know. I believe maybe that's the optimist in me.
No, we're always. But I think that's what we're holding out hope for, is that we see a complete game from the offense, defense, special teams all at once, all at the same time, that they're engaged and focused and can take care of business the way we know that they can.
Oh, absolutely.
The promise that they've shown.
Yep. And honestly, the glimpses we've seen.
Right. We've seen
so it's not
phases.
It's not wishing, right? It's not like we're wishing for something that we haven't seen. We've seen glimpses of all of the aspects that we feel like we need to see from the team. We've seen glimpses of it at some key times. Man, if they can put all of those pieces together, whew.
Yep.
It could be a fun ride through November.
Fun November, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we'll see what happens here,
and more Bulldog Hours.
Yeah. So we said we'd love to get to 20 in a season. Well, right now we're only at 13, so I don't know if that's possible or not. We'll get at least to 16.
Oh, if there weren't weddings in November.
If there weren't weddings
Who gets
in November.
married in November?
No weddings in September, October, and November. Off limits.
Yeah,
jeez.
Somebody would not be a good planner to do that.
So Wilson wins 24-6. Some statistics: Wilson doubled up Penn Manor in first downs, 18-9. So this is where it looks like a dominating win.
Yeah, exactly.
The Bulldogs held Penn Manor, a run first, run second, and probably run third team, to 95 net yards rushing. They got to 71 yards passing, and I think almost all of that came on the final drive. Wilson, in turn, had 167 net yards rushing and 188 net yards passing. So Wilson, doubled up them in terms of output, 166 to 355.
Well, so I don't have the total breakdown, but 89 of Penn Manor's yards came on their last drive.
Yeah.
So
89 of the 166.
Right.
So that's what?
Half.
77 yards they had before that.
Right.
Well, and you know what? And maybe it colored the viewpoint of everyone, because the first quarter wasn't ideal, mostly
Right.
because they had the ball for basically 2 to 3. They had it for over 7 minutes.
Right.
Penn Manor did, and Wilson kind of once again bent but didn't break.
Right.
But it kind of colored the view of the game because they didn't get a 3 and out. Like I feel like whenever the time the defense starts, you're like, all right, we need to get them off the field, and it didn't happen quickly
and
enough.
You
quick
compare
enough.
that with it was kind of like the reverse of last week's start, right? Honestly,
Right,
it's kind
yeah.
of the reverse of last week's game. So like
The
week,
second half felt pretty similar.
I see what you did there. But like if you look at it, we jumped out to the 21-0 lead last week, and it's like, oh man, the route is on, and then it wasn't really a route, but it also wasn't really in question.
No, you're right. You're absolutely.
And then
right.
this week, we didn't get out to the hot start, but you look down in the like third quarter, you're like, oh,
it's
this
24-0.
right, this team that can't throw the ball like in mass, oh, we've got this thing locked up. You know, like
Right.
it. And I know that's not actually how it works. And honestly, that's not even really how my brain works. Like
No.
my sports brain
If
is generally
anyone
like,
knows us-
what could go wrong?
Yeah.
But
How are we going to lose this game? It's 24-0 with 30 seconds to play. I still don't think we've won.
right, it's just going to be the worst when it's the only time it's happened.
Like
But,
being
like-
up 29-0.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe that when I saw that this morning. But yeah, so like there were almost like mirrored games, like the opposites.
They were opposite but the same in
Yes.
a few
Yes.
ways.
Yes.
So
Or as the saying used to go, the people used to say same difference.
same difference. Same difference. So then there are no turnovers in the game by either team. No interceptions.
2 weeks in a row for us.
No
by the way.
fumbles.
for
Yeah,
us.
great for us.
Yes, that is a great trade.
There were, I think, at least 2, maybe 3 dropped interceptions by us that we should have intercepted the pass.
Yes.
There were at least 2 that I know of for sure that I thought we had it. And I think actually one, our 2 teammates, like, inadvertently, not like I'm taking the ball.
Yeah.
No, I'm taking the ball. They ran into
Again,
each other and knocked
there,
it down.
there were a number of plays where it was really hard from my angle to tell what happened. I thought Eddie had picked it on the one across the middle.
I saw it happen, but I didn't know if it hit the ground or not.
Right.
I think that was what the in question.
Right. And I honestly feel like that might have been the closest one.
I
but
think
yeah,
Jackson's there near.
Oh,
I think
yes,
near
yes,
the end.
yes,
He
yes.
had one near midfield that
Yeah.
I thought he was gonna grab.
but yeah, like so, like some of those. But I look back, and again, to talk about kind of to tie into some of the things we talked about. You know, you go back a few more weeks, and the defense, like at Cedar Crest or Mifflin, how the defense made the stops to win the games. You know, like so, like there have been flashes of all this stuff, and when we put it together, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. So a couple other numbers to throw at you team wise. The good 6 of 13 on third downs, not terrible.
No.
I'll take that.
Right.
Not quite 50%.
Yeah, I was going to be like, if you can be over half,
Not quite. 6 of 13 and 2 of 2 on fourth down. That's great.
that's really good.
Now, Penn Manor did convert their one fourth down. They were 1 of 1, but defense held them to 2 of 9 on third down, so that was huge. Wilson only got the 1 sack, and Tommy was under pressure most of the night. He was sacked 3 times. As you'll see as we continue talking there, he had another big game, kept plays alive, using his feet more than his arm this night. But the last thing I want to talk about here is, and we're not going to dwell on this or a specific incident like last week, but penalties. 26 accepted penalties in the game.
Right.
11 against Penn Manor for 134 yards, 15 against the Bulldogs for 144 yards. And and maybe we can just echo what Coach Dom said afterwards. You're going to get what you perceive as bad calls. Maybe obviously Penn Manor didn't think they were bad calls. Or maybe they did, and they're like, we got lucky there.
There were times during the game where both sides were yelling
like,
at the officials.
Yeah, what are we doing here?
Right.
Or that was a holding. That wasn't a holding. That's going to happen.
Every game, every level, all the time.
And at least at no point did we have to wait 3 minutes for them to give the ball back to the other team after a turnover. That didn't happen in this game.
No setting of the chains. Then
No,
deciding
nothing
that.
like that. But and what the penalties that Coach Doms was so mad at had nothing to do with the referees.
Yep.
It was about the players.
Right.
They need to be focused and under control. And
Right.
too often they weren't, or at least the refs thought they were going too far. And this is for both teams. That's why
Yes.
the penalties
Yes.
are up there.
Right.
They were calling it both ways, but
Yes.
obviously Coach Doms was mad about some of the Wilson players not staying cool
Right.
and hurting the team because of it. And he was quite angry about that after the game. But yeah, 26 accepted penalties for 278 yards. And that made the second half drag on.
Right.
It was unfortunate. And a damper on the game. But
Yeah,
I know
2 hour,
people,
43-minute game.
again, yeah. What was it last week? Like 303 or something ridiculous?
Oh, that was absurd.
So individual stats, Tommy Hunziker rushed 19 times for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns. Carl Akins had the second most number of carries at 8 for 17 yards, and he did get in the end zone. But Monty Greer had the second highest number of yards gained. He had 3 carries for 28 yards on the night, and I thought we were getting close to Monty possibly getting in the end zone there towards the end of the game. Didn't happen yet, but we're looking forward to that as he's one of a couple of freshmen that played huge roles in the game last night.
EJ
most of the second half.
But made
linebacker.
some big tackles, and one distinctly sticks out because they were running kind of like that dive play a little bit, and they had some success. We had some success on it too. I think of like Jack going through one time and just drilling a kid, but like there was one where the kid got low, but EJ got lower, and it was like
stopped momentum.
Yeah, there was a pop right there in the hole. So that and again, when you think like this isn't to downplay it, but like it doesn't surprise me when I see Jack make a play like that, because like we've been watching him make varsity plays for 4 years.
Right, exactly.
But like when you get a 9th grader in there who can make a play against a high school kid, that's awesome.
Yeah, so Monty Greer playing a big role. EJ Brownback getting his chance and playing a nice role in the second half. And Michael Glover, who's been playing mostly on defense, occasionally offense and special teams for sure, but making his name on defense. He had a sack last week at Hempfield. I also do believe that today is his birthday. So happy birthday, Michael Glover. One of the 3 big impact freshmen playing meaningful snaps for the Bulldogs, and we'll be watching their careers with great interest over the next 3 years as well. Passing, Tommy Hunziker, only Wilson Bulldog to attempt to pass. He was 16 of 27 for 188 yards. Receiving-wise, both Edison Case and Austin Valukiewicz hauled in 5 passes for 56 yards.
That's pretty cool.
I know Austin had a touchdown for a moment, and he's one of the starting receivers that hasn't pulled down a touchdown pass yet this year, and then it got negated by a penalty. I did love how PA announcer Kevin Venino was, and for either team, it didn't matter who the penalty was on. He would just say, "And another penalty."
That's what it was.
I don't. I'm not going back to the week 1 game talking about that. No,
you used all your blood pressure pills last week.
That's right, I did. Ben Rada had a few field goals attempts. He made one in the fourth quarter to stretch the lead to 24-0.
I thought he made his first one. Like again,
it was super close,
and
40 yards too.
Again, I don't have a great angle. I'm not sure the guy making the call had a great angle because he was moving like to try and see.
I was
up the thing
close
if he
to where he was, and I thought I saw the same thing as he did. That it was wide left. Okay. It was high enough, definitely high enough, because it was over the goal.
Well,
post.
and I said to you, I feel like that hurt the visual aspect of it because like sometimes you can see it was I saw the ball and didn't see the goalpost, so like I know it was between me and the goalpost.
Yeah, you would have had a tough time seeing that.
Right. So like when it's above it, I can't tell from where I'm at.
From my angle, I thought it was a hair wide.
Okay.
And it wasn't that close enough that I think it might have hit the crossbar and bounced in if the posts were high enough. But I do think it was wide enough left that it was the right call.
That was a 40-yarder.
It was a 40-yarder.
And he boomed it.
Oh yeah. That if it was angled properly, that would have been good from 50.
Right.
Like he boomed that one.
That was the end. Joey Julius hit his big.
Why is his name brought up again? I brought his name up with Coach Wolber, both of them yesterday.
Because it will never leave us. We know that will never leave us.
You know what? I talked about the Schuylkill Valley kicker from our game yesterday.
I was talking about him a bunch since Thursday,
biggest kid on the field, and he was only kicking and punting, but he could kick and punt the ball.
Yeah, middle school kid kicking inside the 10.
And then Coach Wolber said, just like 99 at Penn State. I thought he was talking about Joey Julius, and I was like, man, I'm surprised you want to bring up that name with what happened here in 2013. And he was like, I meant the guy now.
But thanks.
But thanks for bringing that up. All right.
Oh, man, we're full of tangents tonight.
Oh, yeah,
Sorry.
all over the place.
I'm
Yeah,
good
all
for
right.
that.
Defensive statistics. Adam Woods led the way with 4.5 total tackles. Logan Kurzweig next with 4. A few guys had tackles for losses, including Ryan McMillan, Jack Dendel, Christo Hunziker, E.J. Brownback, Cam Zulinger, Austin Valukiewicz, and Hunziker and Zulinger shared the sack on the night. So, Justin, I know there's probably a bunch of people yelling, it needs to go to someone else. Don't pick on the same person all the time. But if you were watching the game last night, I feel like the only direction we can go after the shutout was lost is to the direction of, once again, the Wilson quarterback, Tommy Hunziker, because he was the offense almost the entire night by and large. 16 of 27 passing for 188 yards, no touchdowns, but also no turnovers. And he ended up having 19 rushes for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he was the guy again, getting it done.
Yeah, and like we've said, like everyone says, like it. Tommy's finding a lot of success, but it's because of the contributions. We talked about Austin and Eddie both have 5 receptions for 56 yards. Like it takes a team. Carell had some key runs, even though he wasn't like. He wasn't getting like 25 carries or anything, but like he had some key runs.
And he got it in the end zone.
Right. Like it's just kind of the way it
the way the game played out.
Right. The way it plays out.
And Justin and I were both thinking the same way, that as the clock drove down, we were like, we're going to get that shutout.
Right. I was like, shutout. And
it's like,
defense
player of the week to the defense. Got to get that shutout. Everyone's excited about that. And then
someone from the stands was yelling, "You want that pizza?"
They know they get the pizza, and they didn't get the pizza. We got some chats coming in now.
Gosh.
Okay, so I think you asked about this.
I did.
So the question comes from Thomas Deeds on YouTube. Why at the end of the half there was a penalty on Penn Manor, but they didn't mark it off and have it untimed down? So I believe the explanation given to Coach Doms was that it happened basically when the play was over completely, like the time had run out, it was over, everything was completely dead. And then the penalty happened. So according to that, it starts the next half. It's not in. It's because a half can't end on a penalty, but if the half has already ended.
But if the play has ended.
Right.
But I have a couple things I'd like to bring up about that specifically.
I'm going to put this out there. I'm not going to have the answer.
No. But I think it was called because he slid into Ben. Right. I think that's what it was called. See, I don't know because they just said personal foul.
Right.
They didn't say what it was. So I don't know if he said something after the play. If he said something after the play, 100%. Right. If it's for him sliding into Ben, I find it hard to believe that he slid into Ben after the so-called whistle because it was a 40-yard field goal that we already mentioned went over the upright for all intents and purposes.
Well, wasn't this the second field goal? At the end of the half? When did he try the second one?
I don't know. I thought...
Oh, I closed the stats. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't want to derail you. But no, you're right. If it was for running into the kicker, we should have gotten another play.
Right, because if it's not, then that means... Because this was the question that this led me to. So you're telling me if we have a kick at the end of the game to tie or to win the game, that you should absolutely rough the kicker because it doesn't matter and they don't get the...
But that also brings me to... What if that happens at the end of the game and there is an unsportsmanlike or personal foul or whatever? Wouldn't?
So there's no penalty? Like, essentially there's no penalty because if, like, let's say that was for us to tie the game. So we miss, and so the game is over, and they're like, oh, well, that would have been in overtime. You would have gotten the penalty, but, like, it was after the whistle, so it doesn't matter now.
Yeah, I'm very confused on that. And that's something we probably would have to ask Coach Doms about. I don't think he fought it that hard. It didn't seem like seemed like he accepted it.
Right.
And maybe it was one of those the kid said something.
Right.
Because that was clearly happening all night long. Both sides were getting flagged for talking. So
yeah.
I do not have an answer, unfortunately, Thomas, but that's what I heard from down on the field was that it occurred like the half was there and then something happened. And instead of getting to run another play, it was going to be addressed the start of the second half. But you bring up a great point about what would that have happened.
Right. And I don't mean that as in like that I know I'm right because like I don't know. It just that seems like a flaw. If it was for the sliding into the kicker, how is that not part of the play?
Right.
If it's for something he said, okay, that makes a lot of sense to me than it was after the play.
But again, if it's at the end of the game,
and if they didn't call roughing the kicker, what was the kid saying? Like, if anything, if it wasn't roughing the kicker, I would have assumed it was one of our kids complaining about it not being roughing the kicker.
Yeah, I wish I knew, but I don't. So
yeah, and we're still at the edge of that rabbit hole, so we're gonna just hop over and keep going.
We're gonna shift.
Right.
We're gonna shift directions now, and hey, we have some interviews. We haven't had them for a while just because of extenuating circumstances.
Like a 3-hour game.
Like a long game. So we didn't talk to any players though, but we talked to 2 coaches.
Yeah.
Two important coaches.
It was a different situation because of sticking around for the band last night too. So we were able to get the coaches.
Yep, we watched the band performance, which you heard Justin and I say was fantastic, and then we interviewed offensive coordinator Jeremy Palm and defensive coordinator Ernie Wolber, and you're going to hear from Coach Palm right now. All right, here we are post game after Wilson's 6th victory this year. With us is offensive coordinator Jeremy Palm. Twice in 1 year, Jeremy. That's pretty good for us.
This is a record. You guys pull some strings. I appreciate all you guys do for us, so figure I could help out a little bit.
Well, we don't want to keep you. I know we had a lot going on tonight. Homecoming, Athletic Hall of Fame. We just listened to a great band performance. Tell us where we're at. Where are we at here in the Wilson season after 8 games? What does it look like going forward?
Well, we were taking good steps and making good progress, and tonight kind of hit the brakes on that a little bit, but the kids are coming, they're showing up every day, they're battling, they're giving us everything they have. You just got to clean up on some things yet.
So I think the biggest thing that people have been talking about is the play of Tommy Hunziker. He's taken it to another level this year. Tell us about Tommy. What has it been like to work with him over the last couple of years, and especially his improvement this year?
When you talk about Wilson football, you talk about like tradition and what it was founded on, and he is one of those guys. He is one of those guys that's done all those things, from the hard work, the blood, the sweat, the tears. He's been an amazing leader, doesn't miss a beat, doesn't miss a thing. He's at everything, never has an excuse. Throws an interception, he goes, I know. Like, I should have saw this guy, or I didn't get enough on it. He's just amazing. His play speaks for itself. Every Friday night when we walk through the line, the opposing team's coaches go, man, that kid's a stud. So it's just been awesome. And I saw it coming. From that Harrisburg game last year, you saw just because of the kind of kid he was that's the step he was going to take. I don't know if I knew he'd take it this far, but it's been pretty amazing to watch.
Yeah, he's been a gamer. He's having a great year. I didn't get to look at the stats. Joe Peterson handed them to me, but Tommy's been on a roll, and he's going to be pushing some individual single-season records here for Wilson quarterbacks, which a thing or two about, but. So tonight at the Athletic Hall of Fame, 2 former Wilson football players. Both of you got to coach. Pat Zerby, Rodney Hill, in the class now. Can you take us back to 2008 and what was it like around that championship team featuring those 2 guys?
Again, just dudes, man. They were awesome. They were hard-nosed, weight room guys. Back to again, old school Wilson football. When you played them, you walked off the field and you knew it afterwards. So great guys, doing great things still. Rodney came in and spoke to the group today, so before he accepted his Hall of Fame award, so that was awesome. Great things for him. Pat's been around, so we kind of get that on the regular. So that's pretty awesome. Both just awesome Bulldogs.
Yeah, it's great that Rodney was able to come in for the big ceremony before the game. Had to hop on a plane though to do his job for the University of Arkansas. Pat coaching now, awesome. It's always great to have Bulldogs back here with us. We don't want to keep much longer. Last thing is, last week you got 200 wins. I know there's maybe an asterisk there depending on when you qualify, the starting date, but we previously congratulated you on 150 a few years ago based on that start date. So that's what we went with. So congratulations on 200 wins. And as a token of our appreciation, we got you your very own custom 200 victory for Coach Jeremy Palm. Last week got the 200. 201 tonight though, and I'm sure that one feels just as good as number 200.
It absolutely does. There's a lot of great kids along the way, a lot of great coaches, and just happy to be a part of the program, and glad I could be here, be back as a Bulldog.
All right, well thanks for joining us, and good luck the rest of the season.
Thank you. All right, go.
cut off Go Bulldogs.
I know. Well, I didn't know he was going with Go Bulldogs, and then, so I just wasn't going to bring it up.
I need a new videographer, I think.
Yeah, I dropped
just
the
not
ball
cutting
on
it.
that
You know,
one.
my dad was there too. Maybe we'll have to get him to handle the electronics if you can't, because he took this great picture of us with Coach Palm after the game, giving him the football from Jamie, the ball girl.
The best.
Everyone's familiar with her work.
Stuff, it's the best.
Yeah, I believe so. This is the 5th football I think we or the Tradition Club have commissioned from her. We got
the best.
2 behind me. You can kind of see right here above my thumb. That's the Bulldog Hour one here for the show, and then there's a 75th season football behind my big head here on the screen. But we also just presented one to Chad Henne a month ago. I've also had one made for Coach Doms for his when he broke Coach Gursky's wins as head coach. We gave one to Coach Wolber 4 years ago, I believe, at Penn Manor, a night we got to eat at the Sugar Bowl, which now been a year since that's happened, Justin. Hopefully, when this new schedule comes out, we're not hosting Penn Manor again next year and have to wait even longer.
Yeah, it takes a lot for us to not hope for a home game.
Right. Yes.
Especially when the option is going to Millersville, which is kind of a pain in the butt to get to.
Yeah, it's kind of a pain, but, it is what it is. But now
the Sugar Bowl.
The Sugar Bowl, yeah, we love it. So we gave this one that's on the screen now if you're watching to Coach Palm last night. Again, Jamie, the ball girl. Find her on social media. Check out her website. If you need custom sports balls, not just football. She does everything.
Yeah.
She's like field hockey sticks, field hockey balls, baseballs, softballs, basketballs, pretty much everything. She can do it. It's incredible work. They look great. And hopefully everyone that we've given them to
we did one for my son for Colton's first birthday. We had one.
Oh, nice.
Colton's birthday, and then everyone signed like
that's
so
cool.
it's like the front panel. I say front, it's a ball, but like the one panel is like Colton's first birthday or whatever, but on the back like everyone signed it like on like a blank panel. It was
that's
cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So it was great to talk with Jeremy. He always has great things to say.
Yeah. Well, like, and we just being able to like talk to him, and it, like we said, we are much more talkative with the coaches and everything.
Yeah.
After wins, after losses, we just kind of
we kind of move on.
We find our space.
Yeah,
but like
it was great though because we got to track down Jeremy right after the game, but before the band played, talked to him a little bit, and we said, "Hey, can we interview you?" And we talked a bit about the game before the band performed, and we actually recorded. It was great because he was raving about the kids and their performance and how proud he is of them to date and how much better they've gotten. But he also talked about the potential that they have to reach, and he's excited to see them do that over the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, similar to the conversation we had earlier about how like, man, if we can just put it all together. Yeah, those are the same. That's not just us like saying that. That's a lot of people in around here, and like and we've seen the glimpses of it. And like you said, they've come so far. So it's cool because again, if you and I if we were talking to the coaches or we were talking to the players and they're like, yeah, this is, we're at that spot, then I'd be like, oh, okay, but like they're not. They know that they're continuing to get better, and to hear them and the coaches and everyone talk about that and talk about the progress that everyone's made is what kind of gives me that confidence that we're still doing it.
Yeah, and that's why I always wish that the mics were rolling at all times for us to capture everything.
Yes.
Because Jeremy talked about at length how tough the offensive line is.
Yeah.
And that they're gelling now that they're back together healthy.
Well,
which
that's
was
another
a missing piece the first month of the year.
Yeah. Yeah. So like when you get to and I know we talked about it a bunch last week because there was a lot there, but yeah, like getting those guys back and when you keep it like in perspective, like like we're only a few games into having all those guys there,
Right.
So that can be exciting as well.
All right, so we're gonna move on to defensive coordinator Ernie Wolber. We talked to him after the game as well. Hadn't talked to him, I think, since the preseason. So it was good to catch up with Coach Wolber, and we got to ask him a few questions about the Wilson football team as he's seen it over the first 8 weeks of the season. So let's take a listen to that right now. All right, joining us now post-game after Wilson's 6th victory is defensive coordinator Ernie Wolber. Coach, we haven't gotten to talk to you since I think the preseason. It's been a little bit of a while, but tell us, where are we at now in this season with the defense and expectations? There's a few weeks left.
A few. We're getting better. We're still not where we want to be. We had a big talk this week about just being okay. Life's okay sometimes, but it's not okay to be just okay all the time. So it's a matter of be more than okay, you know. I've been married to my wife for 38 years, I think, and 39 maybe. Is that right? All right, anyway, so then why did we marry her for 39 years if our marriage was just okay? You know, I mean, I love her to death, and that's why we're together, because sometimes things are more important than being okay. And I think these young men got to understand you can't go through life being okay. You want more than that in life. I mean, your life's better than okay, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I wouldn't be satisfied if my life was okay, and that's what we're trying to get them. It's not okay to be okay. Expect more of yourselves. So that's kind of where we're building from.
Who has been the biggest surprise for you so far? Someone that's stepped up and made a bigger impact maybe than you expected?
Austin Vajkovic he's committed this year. He played a little bit as a linebacker. And
got the linebacker neck roll now.
Oh yeah, I call him Steve Grogan, the big student neck. But from the 70s, you guys might know the old guys. But no, yeah, he does a great job. He came into this year with a little different attitude, more physical, and he's ready to mix it up. And he's out there. He mixes it up quite a bit. He's having a great year for us. And some of the young guys, like Michael Glover, ninth grader, just playing great. Z Zulinger playing defensive end, playing great. Tonight we had another freshman, EJ, came in and played middle linebacker when Ryan McMillan got hurt. So the young guys are starting to fit in, and it's going to make us a better football team. We're all come playoff time.
What was it like for your defense a few weeks back to get Edison Case back there at the safety position?
Huge. Jackson Wagner's back there, and he did really well. But Eddie just has played back there for 3 years, and he knows things that we don't coach. Things that we've seen 2 years ago, 3 years ago, he can make adjustments like on a dime. And him and Woodsy work together so well. They complement each other very well, and they know what each other's going to do. So they have each other's back, so it works out. Edison has made us a better defensive football team.
You've been with the Wilson football program for a long time now. How many years are we at coaching now?
I don't know.
24?
I don't know.
Somewhere in that area.
And I don't know how many wins I have either.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to focus on the personal. We just talked to Coach Palm. We congratulated him on 200 last week.
I have too many losses.
I know, and those are the ones that eat away at you. But tonight was the program's 599th win.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we're on deck for 600 next week at McCaskey, which coincidentally 10 years ago we won 500 at McCaskey.
I didn't know that.
So a little bit of everything's coming full circle again. But just speak about we inducted 2 new members to the Athletic Hall of Fame tonight, 2 new football players, 3 other accomplished former student athletes here. But Pat Zerby and Rodney Hill, who you got to coach a few years ago. But what's the program mean to you, I guess, as we embark on 600 wins?
It's kind of my life. I mean, if you think about it, when you grow up as a young kid and you come up, I used to come to games in elementary school, and it was like coming to Wilson football games. The greatest thing ever on a Saturday afternoon. You play football back here in the dirt, and you did the same thing. And it was something big, and I came up and like, wow, this is something bigger than I ever thought it was. I was only in elementary school, and slowly started to grow. And it's once you're part of it, being Coach John Gursky, who is such an influence in my life, and Coach Doms and Coach Slemmer, who were here, and they were a big influence in my life. And now coming back here and being part of it for 20 some odd years, it feels like I've been here forever, like I've never left. But it's an awesome feeling, part of something so special. It's bigger than football. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than this field. It's just it's a family. And I talk to players who graduated 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever, and to this day, like tonight, I saw some guys that I haven't seen in 20 years, and it's just automatic. There's a brotherhood, and it's just we expect so much out of each other. And out in the real world, sometimes you need friends out there. And if nobody knows you went through Wilson football for 3 years, they know you paid the price. They know what you did to accomplish that feat. So you can go so much more in life with that, knowing those guys are in your corner, and just going through what we expect of our kids, not only academically, but behavioral-wise, just being socially acceptable, doing the right things in public, being a good person, and it all comes along with it. And like I said, in my life, everything I look at in my life, I look as a coach, as an athlete, I try to prepare for everything. And in life, if I don't prepare, I feel like I'm going in unprepared and I don't know what's going to happen. So I prepare everything as being a football coach or football player. How do I achieve this to get to my goal? And you have to put things in order and work yourself to get to that goal. And that's what Wilson football has done to me. And I'm just trying to pass it on to these young guys. It's such a big influence on me and you, obviously. And sorry you were at Columbia, but but it's such a big influence in my life. And these kids got to know the impact of that. And I saw Rosa, remember Austin Rosa?
Yeah.
Saw Rosa summer. He said, you know what, Coach, if I was more mature as a high school kid, we would have shut everybody out, so I did just listen to you. But we were too immature to understand that.
Yeah.
And hopefully prepare them better for life. That's what I want. I want to win games. I hate losing. I'm the worst loser in the world. However, if you're a better person when you leave here, I did my job.
It'd be wonderful if they would all take those messages to heart at the time. But
Yes.
to hear them come back and say it, at least you know they were listening.
They were listening, and you know what? And some of the people use that to be successful in whatever life they choose to go to.
Perfectly said. So we'll celebrate 600 wins here in the next few weeks, possibly at McCaskey next week. We'll see. Last thing, though, 4 years ago, yesterday, we hosted our 75th season celebration with the alumni flag football game. I know there's been talk about it. It's happening again next year for the 80th season. It will be open to anyone.
Oh, no!
And make sure that Wolber will be participating in the game next year. That's going to happen. I will make sure that happens in some way. Maybe you don't want to play, but we'll get you there. Right, in some capacity, we'll make sure you're involved. So
I will gladly do that.
All right. Well, thanks for talking to us.
Thank you,
good
sir.
luck, and let's hope for 600 next week.
Thanks. Go Dogs.
Nice.
See,
Got go
well,
Dogs there. Huh?
I was prepared. I was going to be like, I'm going to let this run long now. But so many times after the thank you, we get not the awkward, but that's usually when we usually start shaking hands, all that stuff. Yeah, I just dropped the ball.
You did. And Coach Palm will let you know about it, I'm sure.
Well, so here's the thing: we just have to keep getting Coach Palm on,
right,
so that I can get his rhythm. I can get used to his rhythm, and I'll be better next time.
All right, so thanks to Coach Palm and Coach Wolber for joining us after the victory over Penn Manor. It was great to talk to them. Don't get to talk to them as often as we'd like to. We will make it a point to hopefully grab some of the players next week. It's been a while now. I don't like it, but it's just so much stuff.
Again, and it was a weird scenario, because they all stood around and watched the game or the band play, but then they went in to the locker room right after that.
Right.
It was just different.
We'll get to it.
Yep.
We'll talk to them, grab a few guys we haven't heard from a while or heard from at all. That'll be fun. All right, so that's it for Penn Manor in 2023. We're on to Game 9, which is down in Lancaster to take on the J.P. McCaskey Red Tornado, a longtime rival of the Bulldogs. Hasn't exactly been like the 90s were or the early 2000s in the McCaskey-Wilson rivalry, or the late 80s for that matter. Everyone probably remembers the Saturday morning miracle at McCaskey with Collins to Bradburn in 1989. That's the one that comes up most. But those Saturday morning games, I know Coach Schlemmer was not a fan. I don't think really anyone is Saturday morning football games. High school football is meant for Friday nights under the lights. And that's what we'll be doing on Friday in Lancaster to take on McCaskey, who is...
I'm just thinking of Paul's tweet today asking if they could construct a dome over the field at Wyomissing for today.
Yeah, still playing on grass. Probably got beat up a little bit today. But the A field was renamed for Coach Bob Wolfer.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Today, so that
deservedly so.
That was happening over there in the rain. Unfortunately for them, wish it was a nicer day. So the Tornado have won 2 games this year. They lost the season opener to John Bartram, which is the only team they beat last year. So weren't sure if they were going to get any wins this year or not. But they were able to beat in convincing fashion in week 2 Elizabethtown on the road 40-13. They then lost 4 in a row to Cedar Cliff, who I think has only one loss to Bishop McDevitt. They lost to Hempfield, they lost to Plymouth Whitemarsh, and they lost to Manheim Township before beating Reading in overtime. So
that's a tough 4-game
City
stretch
School versus City School, 34-28 in overtime over the Red Knights. But then this past week on Friday the 13th, they went to South Lebanon to take on Cedar Crest and lost 48-6. So they are 2-6, hosting the Bulldogs this Friday. Ben Thompson, in his 3rd season as head coach, was 3-17 before this season, so he's up to 5-23 now. He really inherited a difficult situation when he was thrust into the job right before the 2021 season began, as the other coach resigned in August, I think right before or maybe during heat acclimation.
It was the week before heat act.
Was it the week before
I feel like
heat
it was
act?
like midweek before heat act.
So Coach Thompson and the Red Tornado are running a spread offense with a base defense in the 3-4. They have a returning young quarterback in Jalen Cintron. He was the guy entering the season, and he is the guy so far this year in 8 games. He's completed 86 passes for over 1,000 yards, 15 touchdowns. He does have 7 interceptions, but he is getting the job done offensively for the Red Tornado. On the ground, speedster Steven Lavender Gray, 107 attempts, 563 yards, 1 touchdown, and Josh Morales-Monzon, 366 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground for them. Those are by and large, the guys who see the most time in the backfield. Quarterback Cintron also can carry the ball 45 times for 40 yards. Obviously, he's impacted anytime he gets sacked. Takes away from his rushing total. So that doesn't show the whole picture, his rushing yardage, as he is a dynamic athlete back there, but has been able to do things with his arm this year. We didn't see him at quarterback last year as a freshman, but he was in that rotation. He may have been injured for our game with them.
I feel like he was,
because
I'm not 100%
they went
sure.
with the other 4-year off and on starter, which right now his name is escaping me. But he felt like he's another guy that was like, has he even been there for like 7 years? Right. And I can't. He was a big dude, very very big dude. Could toss the ball. We saw that at Gursky last year. Receiving wise, Cintron's favorite target is Quimek Talton, 32 receptions.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Yes,
through 8 games,
and then 23 and 22.
Yeah, so they've been tossing the rock
well,
often in their spread.
If you go to I know you were referencing it earlier, but if you go to the preview stuff, the coach made no qualms about it. He's like, we're gonna
throw the rock,
chuck it around, right? Yeah,
a little bit different than the 80s and 90s I was talking about,
right?
But Talton, 32 receptions, 428 yards, 8 touchdowns. So he's a guy that defensive backfield for the Bulldogs are going to have to keep an eye on. But DeAndre Jones, second up there, 23 receptions, 400 yards, 5 touchdowns for him. And then the running back, Morales-Monzon, 22 receptions for 231 yards and 3 touchdowns as well. So
they got some weapons.
They've been airing it out. That's where they've been getting their points so far this season. We mentioned it in the interviews, but the win over Penn Manor was number 599 for the Wilson football program. Going to McCaskey with the possibility of winning number 600 there, which would be identical to the way we got to 500, which happened in Lancaster end of September 2013, just over a decade ago. The Bulldogs traveled.
Were you at that game?
I was at that game.
I was at that game too. Yeah.
The Bulldogs traveled there at 499, looking for 500, and got it. So we hope many of you can travel to Lancaster this coming Friday, October 20th, 7 o'clock kickoff. Bulldogs Red Tornado. Wilson looking for win 7 on the year, win 600 all time for the program, and well, I guess win number 6 last night just means that the winning season streak continues.
That was what I was just going to say to you.
So we're at 60 consecutive seasons of non-losing football. What is non-losing? It means you've won.
I had to have this conversation with Austin last night.
You won.
He's like, what does that mean?
As many as you lost, or more than you lost.
Right.
So, generally, more often than not, a high school season is 10 games. So there were a few years there where there were 11. And then you get more once the playoffs came to be. But if you're 5-5 in the regular season, unless you make the playoffs at 5-5 and lose, once you get to 5 wins, that's kind of the point where you're like, all right, we're gonna have a 500
there
season or better.
There were some years where that could have happened back when they were doing the 16
when they had 16 teams,
but at 8 teams, that's not going to happen.
Well, Wilson hasn't been close to finishing at 500 since 2001.
Yeah.
Now there have been years where we've been 7-3, a few over the last few years.
Right.
We've seen it happen, but that 7-3 just feels so much better than 6-4.
Oh yeah.
So getting to this 7-win mark next week makes things feel a lot better with 1 game to go.
Right.
So Wilson
and
at
it would be 7 in a row.
7 in a row, yeah, quite the streak. 599 wins, going for 600, 60 straight non-losing seasons, but the win last night to get to 6-2 on the year clinches a winning season for certain, because even if Wilson would lose to McCaskey Township, make the playoffs, and lose, you'd still be sitting at 6-5, which is a winning season overall, and that is the 48th straight winning season for the program, which I believe both are state records.
Yes.
The 60 consecutive non-losing season is extending Wilson's current state record. They surpassed, I think it was Ridley, in possibly the COVID shortened 2020 season. I think they finished.
I don't know if it was that one. I thought it was the year after.
Well, it was the COVID shortened season because they only played 6 games.
Okay.
But they went 3-3. So if it was the non-losing streak, that would still be going. So it must have been the winning streak. So Wilson's 48 straight consecutive winning seasons is extending their own state record, our own state record, surpassing Ridley's, who's ended a few years ago when they went 3-3. I don't know what the non-losing streak record in the state is. I'm not sure if that's how to find that out. The Ridley one is what I always heard about, and I believe that is the winning season record. That was the one that we had been chasing. But
because one year didn't they start out like 1-4 or something like that,
and then storm back and
they stormed back, and they might have won their first round in the districts. I feel like one year it was in question.
Well, I think they were,
and like they won their district.
They were
matchup.
5-5 and made it to the playoffs. And
But they made it as the 15
or 16 seed,
and they upset like North Penn or something like that in the first round.
Yes.
Yeah,
you're right. I do remember that. So, yep, that's what's happening. I know. I feel like some people think it's ridiculous that we talk about that, but if you sit there and go,
it's just
well,
absurd.
I posted it because I made the graphic about 60 straight. The last time Wilson finished the season with a losing record was 1963. The last game was a big blowout loss to rival Governor Mifflin in Reading at Municipal Stadium. The Bulldogs finished 1-8-1. It was November 15th, 1963. John F. Kennedy was still the president. Now, it was only for one more week, unfortunately. But JFK was the president the last time Wilson had a losing season. Hopefully that kind of brings it more to the forefront of how long this has been happening. And it's tough to do. You see it all the time. Generally speaking, even the best of the best have a down year here and there.
Right.
But a down year for Wilson is people like my junior year, 2001, when we went 6-4. People were freaking out. 6-4. There are teams that celebrate when they get to 500. There are great programs. Like look at the way Manheim Township is playing right now. They're one of the top teams in District 3 6A. Right. You go back 15 years, they were having losing seasons. They were having losing seasons about 10 years ago. Right. It takes time to build a program. It's even harder to stay on top. And Wilson has done that now for 6 decades.
Right.
6 decades. The program is only the 79th season. 60 of the last 60 of them have finished with a non-losing record. And there were some the first 19 years as well. Not very many. Things changed when John Gursky came because this all started with his first season. Back-to-back seasons, he went 5-5. It's bonkers to think about. It really is. So hopefully people within the program and in the community, the fandom appreciate it, and hopefully people take notice of it outside.
Yeah,
I think plenty do. It's been written about plenty of times before by the Red and Eagle and specifically Mike Drago, and it's been mentioned quite often about the just the staying power that the program has. So, and we could have an entire episode about why that is, but we're already running past time now, so we're going to wrap things up. All right, Justin, anything to say before we head out of here until next Sunday?
I don't think so. But, like you said, let's really work on fine-tuning things here, getting all, firing on all cylinders, all those cliches. But let's get that going, get the 600th win, and really start to establish what we're going to need for 2 weeks from now, which will be its own animal. And honestly, after this coming week, every remaining week will be as big as it gets, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what it's going to be. So.
Take care of business in week 9. Get the win over McCaskey.
Yeah.
Get the 7-2, 7 in a row. Win 600 in program history.
Right.
Come back home for senior night, green out, and a huge Section 1 showdown with Manheim Township, who has become your league rival over the last, about the last decade, close to it.
But let's handle our business this week. And
yes.
And yeah, because that game deserves all the attention it's going to get. But we need to hold up our end of the bargain to get there.
Plenty of it next Sunday on the show with Mike Drago and Jeff Reiner.
Pulling out the big guns.
So I had pulled up the power ratings, but we don't need to talk about them now. There's still a lot of games we play, but we'll bring them up next week because we'll be talking about a whole variety of things. But like if you pull them up now, you're gonna be like, oh, Wilson, I think we were up to 5.
Right. I guarantee you there are games that haven't been entered yet.
There's one. Chambersburg was not up to date.
Okay.
Unless they didn't play. I don't know.
Right.
But
I doubt it. Mid-Penn team.
It's almost pointless to look at them now because there's too many games left to be played. But we can go over predictions, and maybe that's something we'll do next week, possibly since every team will have played 9 games. The picture will be clearer, but there's so many key ways.
And we're gonna have guests on next week. So I don't know.
Central York and York William Penn are playing each other. Central Dauphin and Harrisburg are playing. Like we talked about the LL. Top to bottom, big Week 10 games. There's so many huge week games in the York League and the Mid-Penn League that will impact the power ratings at the 6A level.
Right.
So huge games. I don't know if we'll talk about the York or Mid-Penn games, but
tangentially. I thought Cheltenham has won the last 2 weeks, which
that's huge.
That's good for
us.
That's
a big one for us.
If they could win their next 2, that would be huge.
Yes, that helps us. Every time our opponents win is a good thing for us. There's non-conference,
especially the
opponents.
non-conference, because the conference ones,
Roman
everyone
Catholic,
you lose, you
Central
win.
Dauphin, Cheltenham, Mifflin. Those teams are better. It looks better for us and helps directly in the power ratings. So, all right. Well, I think that's it for us here at the Bulldog Hour this week. Thanks for watching episode 13 of season 9. Justin and I will be back with guests Mike Drago and Jeff Reinhardt next Sunday, October 22nd at 8:30. And you can find us across our social media platforms. But that's it. Thanks again to the coaches for the interviews. For Justin Raffoff and the entire Wilson football program, I'm Joe Mays. And until next time, remember, go Bulldogs.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Bulldog Hour. Want more Wilson football? Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. Or visit www.bulldoghour.com. The Bulldog Hour is a feature program on jmnjrradio.com.